Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning with the Way program. I am Reverend Dr. Lillian Robinson, your host, and my guest this morning is none other than Mayoral Candidate Zack Reed, and he will be a candidate for mayor for the city of Cleveland. So this morning, I do welcome him. And we know that the Way program brings you relevant biblical discussions. And this discussion is biblical in the sense that First Corinthians 12:28 tells us that God has set some in the church, first apostles, secondarily prophets, thirdly teachers, after that miracles, then gifts of healings, helps, and governments, and diversities of tongue. So the area of government is one that is biblical and that God expects us to use our discernment when we're looking at our biblical leaders. So Mr. Reed has agreed to join us this morning, and I am so glad that he is here. Zack Reed served the Mount Pleasant neighborhood of Cleveland, where he was born and raised, as a highly respected Cleveland City Councilman. Reed then went on to serve as the Minority Affairs Coordinator for the Ohio Secretary of State's office. There he traveled the state working to strengthen minority-owned businesses, as well as helping to ensure the integrity of Ohio elections. This September 14th, he will be on the ballot, and then hopefully he will advance to the general election, which will be held on November 2nd.
Prophesy, sister. Prophesy.
Amen. He will be there. And he has a platform that emphasizes safety, education, and enhancing city services. And he's created a wealth of support, and he appears to be a strong front runner. So with that, I bring to you Mr. Zachary Reed.
Oh, thank you. Are you a pastor? Pastor, right?
I am not a pastor. I am an ordained minister, however.
Okay.
So,
well, doctor. I can call you doctor.
You can call me Reverend or Doctor, yes.
Okay. All right, doctor. Well, thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it very much. I look forward to this robust conversation on how we change the direction of the city of Cleveland that ensures that every ward, every community, every neighborhood, and every citizen and resident that makes up those wards, communities, and neighborhoods prospers in the success of the city of Cleveland.
Amen. Amen. Yes, we want citizens to thrive within the city of Cleveland. So first, tell me a little bit about yourself.
I think you did a really good job of laying it out. I was reared. We started on 69th and Euclid, but when I was in the third grade, my mom moved my other two brothers. I was raised by a single mom. She raised three boys on her own. We moved to Mount Pleasant when I was in the third grade. I delivered papers. I delivered the Cleveland Plain Dealer and the Cleveland Press. I age myself when I tell people I delivered the Cleveland Press. But I delivered the Cleveland Plain Dealer and the Cleveland Press. I went to junior high school here in Mount Pleasant, and then I went to John F. Kennedy in the Lee Harvard neighborhood. When I was 14 years old, delivering the paper one afternoon, William Bill Franklin, who was councilman at that particular time when we had 33 wards, and Mount Pleasant was Ward 10 at that particular time, asked me to deliver his flyers at the same time I delivered my papers. And I did. And then from that on, he took me underneath his wing and taught me the importance of being a public servant, giving back to the community, and what it meant to be a public servant. So I would say since the age 14, I've been doing a lot of the work of helping people, not only here in Cleveland, but throughout the state of Ohio and throughout the nation with my working in the San Francisco Housing Authority.
All right. So you have a history within the city of Cleveland, and you are well invested within those communities. Your heart,
Yeah.
your heart is actually tied to the community.
Yep. Yep.
So how do you think it's going to benefit the city of Cleveland as a whole should you become mayor?
Well, the benefit that I bring to the table when you look at me being the next mayor of the city of Cleveland is the fact that you now have a mayor that has a long history of public service,
Mm-hmm.
that understands that understands the importance of public service. And you look at the aspect that for 11 years, I trained young people between the ages of 18 to 24 to work on conservation and beautification projects throughout the entire state of Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at that aspect. Just take that one job position first of all.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, you're interacting and working with young people between the ages of 18 to 24, and you're training them how to get up every day to go to work. What's the importance of getting up every day and going to work?
Right.
How to when you get a directive and a duty on that job, how to go about doing that directive and how to be go about doing that particular duty. The fact that we took young people out of public housing and learning that people live in public housing, they're just as important to the well-being and the upkeep and how the city works as anybody else in the city. They just happen to live in public housing. I tell people all the time, President of the United States lives in public housing. Governor of the state of Ohio lives in public housing. So we don't look down on those individuals. So why are we looking down on individuals who live in public housing? So the fact that I was able to work in public housing work with individuals living in public housing, bringing them into the Conservation Corps, and then for 6 months, and then taking them and working with the local unions. So you just look at that one opportunity for 11 years of working throughout the state of Ohio, working with young people between the ages of 18 to 24, working with the labor union early on, getting young people to go into labor and going into these trade unions. I mean, that alone right there sets me aside from any other candidate, because there's no candidate in this race that can actually tell you that they've done that for 11 years. And then you look at the 4 years that I worked in public housing for the San Francisco Housing Authority as the Intergovernmental Affairs Officer, and traveling from San Francisco back to Washington, D.C., speaking to the HUD individuals and speaking to people like Nancy Pelosi, who is now the Speaker of the House, Dianne Feinstein, about the importance of providing the resources, providing the funding, providing the leadership in public housing that took the San Francisco Housing Authority from one of the worst big housing authorities in the nation to one of the most improved housing authorities in the nation in 1 year. Then coming back, doing 17 years at Cleveland City Council. So you look at that. For 17 years, I was a councilman. That means I had to look at the city budget for 17 consecutive years.
All right.
So that means that I know that city budget back and forth. Because for 17 years, I had to look at it, whether it was the general fund budget, whether it was the enterprise budget, whether it was the CDBG budget.
All right.
I had to actually look at that budget and approve or disapprove it every single year for 17 years. There's no one else that can tell you they did that.
Okay.
And then just finished 3 years with the Ohio Secretary of State's office as the intergovernmental, as the Minority Affairs Officer for the for the Secretary of State, traveling throughout the entire state of Ohio, speaking to minority businesses, speaking to minority organizations and individuals about ways that, how do you start a business? How do you maintain your business? How do you grow your business? And then you look at the voting aspect, working with churches and nonprofit organizations and for-profit organizations, and educating them on the importance of voting and why we
Mhm.
should vote and how you
Yeah.
can vote. So you
Yes.
take that whole history of what I've been able to do from working for a governor, working for Mayor Willie Brown in San Francisco, 17 years as a city council person, and now working for Frank LaRose. You think about that. No one else has a resume that can match that resume that's
Oh,
running in this race.
okay. All right. Now,
That's the
so
wealth that I bring to this seat of the mayor seat.
oh, all right. So with that wealth of experience, what is it that you're most passionate about currently? As you look at Cleveland currently, um, what are the things that you see need to be improved, or what are your top priorities?
Well, I would say that the top priorities that I have that I want to do when I become mayor of the city of Cleveland is, first of all, we got to do something about the public safety in the city of Cleveland.
Okay.
Safety is paramount.
Yes,
People don't feel safe, they don't go to church.
that's
If
right.
people don't feel safe, they don't want to send their children to school.
That's
If
right.
people don't feel safe, they don't go out to parks and be a part of the overall community as a whole because they
That's
don't feel safe. So they
right.
hunker down in their own homes. They stay on their own street. They don't
Hmm.
go outside and be a vibrant part of the community as a whole. So if that's not happening, we're not getting people to come to community meetings, come to community events, to come out and tell us what do they believe needs to be happening in our community because they don't feel safe.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
we've got to stop looking at this public safety from the one lens that we've looked at it from for far too long. And we looked at it from a criminal justice lens.
Hmm.
We need to
Hmm.
start looking at it from a public health lens.
All
When
right.
young men are dying, black men, the leading cause of death for an African American male between the ages of 18 to 24 is homicide, and they're not
Mm.
even making it to their 25th birthday, and they're
Yes.
dying at alarming rates. That's not a criminal justice issue by itself. That's a public health issue.
Hmm.
Young men should not be dying before their 24th birthday, before
That's
their
true.
25th birthday.
That's right.
So if these young men were dying from some infectious disease or some from cancer or some medical condition, we
Hmm.
try to find out why are young men dying from these diseases and not making it to their 25th birthday. So
Hmm.
why are we not working aggressively to find out why young black men are dying before their 25th birthday? And what can we do to stop that from happening?
That's right.
So we've got to start looking at it from a public health lens. Start looking at the reasons, that when you're looking at public health, one of the things that every doctor tells you is you got to start from the preventive portion first.
Hmm. Hmm. That's right.
So if we're going to look at this from a public health lens, the first thing we got to start looking at is how do we prevent young black men from dying before their 25th birthday?
That's right. And we don't
And we
know
know what
that
they
until we
are.
determine the cause.
And we know what some of these things are.
Hmm.
Lack of job opportunities, lack of
Okay.
community investment,
All right.
lack of economic opportunities, lack of fathers in their homes. So there are a
Hmm.
multitude of reasons why. And what we've got to do is say, okay, let's stop putting more police on the street just for the sake of putting more police on the street.
Yes.
And let's figure out from a public health aspect, how do we stop this from happening? Secondly, we got to look at the city services in the city of Cleveland. They're not top notch. They're not
Hmm.
they're not where they should be at.
Hmm.
EMS as a whole. Every other week we're getting stories from the media on how people who are calling 911 and asking for an ambulance aren't getting it in a timely fashion, and things are happening in our community that are not leading to individuals their lives being uh, uh, saved simply because our city services, as it just relates to EMS, is not there.
Hmm.
It's not just EMS. It's the fact that we have a lack of green space in these
Hmm.
neighborhoods of color. The fact
Yeah.
that we've got young women who don't feel as if they're part of the overall system as a whole, because we're treating young women in too many cases as secondary citizens.
That's
So,
right.
so you look at those are city services that we need to be providing in our wards, in our communities, and in our neighborhoods that ensures that everybody understands that we need all hands on deck. And then last but not least, we got to do something about the poverty in the city of Cleveland.
Yes.
We've got to do something about the poverty of the citizens for the citizens in the city of Cleveland. We should be appalled. Every citizen in this city should be appalled that 50% of our children are living in poverty in this city.
Yes. One of the worst rates in the United States.
And the fact that the city of Cleveland, year after year, has been in the top 5, and I'm being liberal when I call it the top 5, as one of the poorest cities in the nation.
That's right.
And right now, we find ourselves for the second consecutive year of being the number 1 large city, poorest city in the nation. And we should be appalled.
That's right. We should be. We should
be outraged.
Yes.
That the fact that we can build big buildings, and I've said this throughout this campaign, and I will continue to say it. City of Cleveland does a really good job of investing in building bridges and roads and buildings. We don't do a good job of investing in people.
That's right.
And as mayor of the city of Cleveland, I'm going to turn that thing upside down. I am going to start to invest in people.
I hope that you do.
And you know how I'm going to do that? Because I'm going to start investing in neighborhoods. Neighborhoods are made up by people. And if you invest in neighborhoods, you invest in people. And if you invest in people, you invest in neighborhoods. And those are my 3 top priorities: public safety, public city services, and poverty.
Yes, yes, indeed. Because, as a nurse, I work with home health aides, and I've been an advocate for them to be paid a higher wage. I am an advocate for, because these are single moms in many cases, but yet they can't make a living wage. $9 is the average salary for them. And if they have 3 or more children, no person can survive off of that. I mean, you can hardly purchase a car on that salary, yet they're expected to come to work every day. They can't get the job unless they have a GED, and you have policemen on the streets who are not required in order to get a job as a policeman to even have a GED. And that's a travesty. That's a travesty. So we wonder why the policemen don't handle emergency situations appropriately. Well, they're not properly trained. And so for me, that's a huge issue within the city of Cleveland and with other cities as well.
And I think you hit the nail right on the head. I was talking to someone the other day when I was knocking on doors. I said, I can't tell you whether or not the wage should be $10 an hour, or whether or not it should be $15 an hour, or $20 an hour, but it needs to be a living wage.
That's right. That's right.
I think you hit the nail when I tell people that anybody believes that the minimum wage, I think it was $8.75 an hour right now, federal minimum wage. You're talking about $9 and $15. One of the candidates that's running for mayor of the city of Cleveland, who makes over $100,000 a year, literally went out of his way to ensure that individuals couldn't make $15 an hour, while at the same time, this person's making $100,000 a year. And now you can be mayor of the city of Cleveland? I mean, how do you think people are going to move from these poverty wages to making living wages if they're not even starting with a good wage? But yet you got a good wage, but yet you don't want these individuals to get just a decent wage.
That's right.
And now you want to be mayor of the city of Cleveland. And these are the type of things that people need to know and understand. There are people in this race, they want you to forget about their past. And I'm not going to let them forget about their past. I went out there and offered $15 an hour. I fought
Mm-hmm.
for a living wage in the city of Cleveland. I would
Okay.
always talk about the fact that people need to be having a good wage. Bobby
Mm-hmm.
Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy said it best of all. The greatest thing you can do for a man, now I understand this
Mm-hmm.
is 1960 now, so don't give
Yeah.
me, Bobby Kennedy said this. I didn't say that. But he said the greatest thing you can do for a man is to get him a job. Because when you
Mm-hmm.
get that man that job, and that guy
Mm-hmm.
is making and that person is having a good wage, they have the ability to take care of their family first and foremost. They have the
Yes.
ability, they have dignity also because they got a job.
That, that's
And
right.
then thirdly, they have the opportunity to give back to their society. Without
Yes.
their job, they don't have dignity in their life. They don't have the
Mm,
ability to take care of their family, and they don't have the ability to give back to society.
that,
But
yeah.
you can bet that they gonna find a way to take care of their family now.
That's right. That's right.
You know, if they got children, they gonna find a way to put food on the table for their children. And in
Yes.
some cases, it's gonna be it's gonna be a good way, and in some
Yeah.
cases, it's not gonna be in a good way. And our
Mm-hmm.
job is to make sure that that happens. You know, we just saw, and there are things that we can do. You
Mm-hmm.
just saw the president just announced that they're going to start sending checks to families for those children that are living in those conditions that
Mm-hmm.
aren't in the top tier. And what did
Yeah.
they say? Just by doing that, just those tax credits coming every month instead of
Yes.
waiting to the end of the year, just by doing that every month, it's going to take X amount of children out of poverty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because we
Yes.
all know the harmful effects of poverty. Poverty leads to crime. Poverty
Mm-hmm.
leads to unhealthy conditions in our community.
Yeah.
Poverty leads to mental health crisis in our community. We know what
Yeah.
poverty does. It's a destructive factor in our community. And
Yeah.
why we in the city of Cleveland think that just by saying, well, we live in poverty, we got 50% of our children living in poverty, and we're the number one poorest city in the nation. Why we
Mm,
want to walk around and just think that we want to just blow that off as just a statement? It's
right.
befuddled to me, but as mayor of the city of Cleveland, I'm gonna do all that I possibly can to ensure that our children in my tenure are gonna be moving from this from the poverty situation to a better situation.
If you could achieve that, that would be great. That would be great.
We can
Um,
achieve. We can
yeah.
achieve.
Yeah. And another issue that leads to poverty is the condition of our schools. Um, our children aren't graduating, and if they are graduating, they're not prepared. And so I'm not sure what can be done to improve the condition of Cleveland schools. And I attended Cleveland public schools, and we had top-notch teachers at that time. And we loved our teachers, and we continue to do so. Um, and if we're on Facebook, well, what happened to Mr. So and so? What happened to Mrs. So and so? We had a love for our teachers, and they in turn they had a love for us as well. And they were excellent teachers. And I will say that Mabel Jasper was one of my teachers. Unikina was one of my teachers. Okay, so we had excellent teachers. And I'm not sure where the school system is today, or what can be done to improve it.
Well, I went to, like I said, I graduated from John F. Kennedy, so I went to Cleveland Public Schools myself. And when
Mm-hmm.
I tell people, when I graduated from John F. Kennedy, and I went to school in San Francisco, California, and I attended Golden Gate University, which is the third most accredited private school in California, and the
Mm-hmm.
only two in front of Stanford and USC. And when I went and I applied and I took the test and I
Yeah.
got in, the people
Yeah.
who lived in San Francisco were amazed. They're like, "How'd you get into that school?" I said, "I went down and took the test and
Mm-hmm.
I got in." And they were amazed. I wasn't amazed because I knew I got a really good education from the Cleveland public school system. So I knew
Yes.
I could go to any place in the country and go to any college and knew I could take the test and be able to pass that test. That
Mm.
was never a problem for me. But
Yes.
what we've done now is everybody doesn't want to go to college. Every student doesn't want to go to
That's,
college.
that's
And
true.
what we've done is we've now put so much emphasis on children, students going to college that we forget that a number of those students are not going to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
But every one of those students are going to leave that school and go into society.
Mm-hmm.
And what
That's
we
right.
need to be doing is to ensure that whether or not they go to college, whether or not they want to start their own business, whether or not they want to go to trade school, whether or
Mm-hmm.
not they want to go to the military, that they are prepared when they leave that school to go out into society and be able to navigate society.
Yes.
And therefore, what we need to be doing in the school system, and I'm going to work with the CEO to ensure that that happens, is to ensure that there is a smorgasbord and a buffet, a variety of different opportunities for our students when they're in school.
Mm-hmm.
The fact
Mm-hmm.
that you only got one vocational school in the entire city of Cleveland, Max A's on West 65th Street, we got to
Mm-hmm.
change. There needs to
Yeah.
be one on the east side, there needs to be one on the west side.
Yes.
We need to ensure that children, students have the opportunity to look up on that radar screen and decide which path do I want to go down. You
Follow
know,
their
I tell the
dreams.
story all the time of two of my best friends that lived on 139th and Kinsville with me, Sean Woodall and Dwayne Ezel. Remember
Mm-hmm.
them vividly. We all went to Robert Fulton together. We all went to Alexander Hamilton together. And then
Yeah.
when we had the opportunity to go to John F. Kennedy, they
Mm-hmm.
decided that they wanted to go to Aviation High School. Now, why
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to go to High School? I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to go fix planes and drive and fly planes and the whole lights. So
Mm-hmm.
Aviation High School was available to them. So what
Mm-hmm.
did they do? They went to Aviation High School. They
Mm-hmm.
graduated from Aviation High School. They
Oh.
then joined the Air Force, and they
Mm-hmm.
were able to take care of their families because of their job and service in the Air Force. But where did it start? It started from the Cleveland public school system again.
All right. That's
And
right.
I say to you, there are a number of students in that school system that don't want to go to college, and I'm all for college. I'm all
Yeah.
for the say
Yeah.
yes to
That's true.
the say yes to education program. I'm all for
Mm.
it. But
Yes.
I'm all for a student that says, I want to be I want to be a plumber. I want to be a
Yes.
carpenter. I want to be a
Yes.
roofer. I want to be an electrician. I want to start my own business. I'm all for saying, okay, how do we get that student that when they graduate from public school, how do we get them to fulfill their dream? I had a
Yeah.
dream that I wanted to be mayor of the city of Cleveland when I was 14 years old. And
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland public school system has now put me in a way to where now I can run from this mayor of the city of Cleveland and win in November.
Yes.
All started from the Cleveland public school system, and we need to be doing the same thing for our students today.
All right. All right. So we talked about the ways that Cleveland needs to improve or change. And if you look at Cleveland, if I look at Cleveland, it's a wonderful city. There's a lot of good things going on in Cleveland as well. So let's talk about that for a bit. Um, we know that the 105th and Euclid area is one of the best areas in the world in terms of museums, the arts, and that kind of thing. We have the best hospitals, some of the best hospitals in the nation. Um, so what are some of the things you see as being advantages to living in Cleveland?
Well, the cost of living, first of all,
Okay.
because you take into account, like I said, I moved from San Francisco to Cleveland in 2000, and I can tell you, I lived in what they call an in-law, which is a garage that had
Okay.
a bedroom, a kitchen, and a shower, and I paid over $800 to live in that garage.
All
Okay,
right.
so for $800, I'm not living in a garage in Cleveland. I can guarantee you that. So,
Okay.
so I mean, the cost of living right off the bat and the cost of housing, I can tell you, is much better here in Cleveland than it is in other parts of the country. Uh,
Okay.
so that's one advantage. The other advantage is the lakefront. I mean, the fact that you live on the fresh body of water, Lake
Mm-hmm.
Erie. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
our metro parks, I love our metro parks. I love
Mm-hmm.
what they've been able to do to our lakefront.
Yeah.
And what I want to do is see how we expand what they've already done to other parts of the city. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to working with Brian and his team at the Metro Park, Brian Zimmerman and his team at the
Okay.
Metro Park, to see how do we then expand what we've done in other parts along the lakefront to other parts of the city. I want to
Mm-hmm.
see I want to see Gordon Park, the lower part of Gordon Park and the upper part of Gordon Park become a vital part of the Metro Parks on the east side of the city of Cleveland. I mean,
Okay.
you think about that. If you took 70 East 72nd Street, coming off
Mm-hmm.
of St. Clair, which leads right into Gordon Park, upper and lower, leads right
Okay.
into Lake Erie. You think
Mm-hmm.
about that was another part of the city. I
Mm-hmm.
guarantee you that corridor right now, that
Yes.
corridor right now will be revitalized,
Uh-huh.
reinvigorated, and
Mm-hmm.
redeveloped. There's no doubt
Yeah.
in my mind. So
Yes.
just because it sits on East 72nd and not
Mm-hmm.
on another part of the city, there's no
Mm-hmm.
reason in the world why we're not revitalizing that part.
Okay.
It's got the same characteristics as other parts of the city that we've revitalized because we try to get people closer to the lake.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you think about our cultural gardens, that's another advantage. And
Okay.
one of the dreams that I've said, and I've talked to former councilman Jeff Johnson, and I've talked to present councilperson Kevin Conwell. Why is
Mm-hmm.
it that you can't cut off Martin Luther King on the weekends,
Mm-hmm.
allow everybody to be able to walk or ride a bike or
Mm-hmm.
rollerblade or jog,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, along the cultural gardens without having to navigate away from cars?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And people say, Zach, that's crazy. How are you going to pull that off? I say, well, if it's so crazy, and if you think it's crazy in Cleveland, they do it every weekend in New York with the
Yeah.
largest park in the country, one of the largest parks in the country, at Central
Mm-hmm.
Park. They
Yeah.
cut off parts of Central Park every weekend to allow pedestrians, bike riders, joggers, rollerblades, skateboarders to just be able to navigate Central Park
Yes.
and be able to have things in Central Park. Why can't we do it for our cultural gardens here in the city of
That's
Cleveland? I mean, we got
that's
to.
getting
I mean,
outside of the
I
box.
don't know if you're a Baptist or whether or not you're Presbyterian or whatever, but I know the Baptists, they got that saying that says we don't do it because we've always done it this way. Well, just
Right.
because we always did it this
Baptist,
way,
not Baptist. I will claim that foundation.
right?
Yes.
So just because we always did it this way doesn't mean we always got to do it this way. Let's change it up.
That's right. That's right. You have to think
You know, we got
outside
the
the
cultural
box.
gardens, we got the lakefront, we got the cost of living, and I could just go on and on and on. Cleveland's a great place to live. I
Mm-hmm.
love this city. I love
Yes.
the people in this city. This city has been good to me and my family. This
Mm-hmm.
job, as mayor of the city of Cleveland, the second most powerful political position in the state of Ohio, gives me the opportunity to give back to a city that has done so much for me and my family. And that's why I'm running for mayor of the city of Cleveland.
All right. All right. Yeah. So yes, we have to look at the good and we have to look at the bad, so that we can improve the bad and improve the good, even if that's possible. Um, now we're still in the midst of COVID-19.
Yes.
It's we've had a tough year, but yet it's been a good year, that many of us survived. And it almost seems as if it's not over, because now there's new strains coming out. So how do you see yourself navigating through the issues of COVID-19 in the midst of all these other things that need to be done?
Well, I've said this from the beginning. One of the things as you look at the pandemic and COVID-19 as it relates to the city of Cleveland, going back to public health and city services once again, is the fact that we went out there on the front line.
Mm-hmm.
That our leadership was not out there on the front lines advocating. You know, it's all well and good to send out a memo and a press release saying you need to wear your mask and you need to make sure you social distance and you need to do all these things,
Mm-hmm.
and that's great. But one of the things that as mayor is, I think you need to be out there on the front line.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, right now, we should look at where if you and I right now for transparency, where we are for the vaccination rate. Where are we? I mean, what's the percentage of the people in the city of Cleveland that's gotten the 2 shots?
You're right. It's very, very low.
Right.
We're
So we
probably
should be out there.
50%.
Right.
Yes, we're below.
So when you look at the new strand that just came out, I mean, we know they said if you got your 2 shots, your chances of getting sick and having to go to the hospital because of the new strand is slim. So why are we advocating? Why are we not advocating for everybody to get the 2 shots? I got my 2 shots. When I got my 2 shots, I made sure I put it on Facebook, I put it on Twitter, I put it on Instagram. I shouted it from the rooftop that I got my 2 shots and you need to go get your 2 shots. When you talk about how we navigate right now, what we need to be navigating right now is we need to still be ensuring that we get that percentage rate up.
Yes.
100% of the people in the city of Cleveland need to get their 2 shots. And how do we get those 2 shots to them? Some of them need to go to the hospital. Some of them need to go to Marks. But in some cases, we need to be going to them. Meeting with faith-based institutions. We're going to set up COVID shot places at your church and at my church, at schools, at daycare centers. But we're going to continue to emphasize everybody's got to get their shots. And we should be running a campaign. You know, we as politicians, we know how to run a campaign for us to become mayor and city council people and all these other things. Why are we running a campaign to ensure that people's lives are going to be safe, are going to be saved because they got their 2 shots?
Yes, yes, yes. There are so many people that for various reasons are afraid of the vaccines. Even some healthcare professionals are anti the vaccine.
Well, we need to change their minds.
Yeah, which is really an oxymoron almost, as far as I'm concerned. I'm pro-vaccine, but not everyone is, and so that's where we have the problem.
Well, if you went to the doctor, and the doctor told you had cancer, and he told you had to do this to rid yourself of that cancer, you do whatever you had to do to get rid of yourself of that cancer. So at the end of the day, we got to show people there has to be a link between you not getting your shot and you getting sick and going into the hospital. And that's where leadership comes in. And that's where leadership comes in. And once again, that's why I'm running for mayor of the city of Cleveland. That's why I laid out my long history of my resume of being in public service. Everywhere along that way, you can see I showed leadership.
Okay.
Leadership is important to this job. And when you look at this pandemic, President Biden is right. If we don't put this thing behind us, if we don't get this COVID-19, this pandemic disease and this virus behind us, we're going to have some problems going forward. And as mayor of the city of Cleveland, I would be advocating every single day, going to wherever I had to do to make sure that everybody got their 2 shots.
And that was a good analogy, because actually the virus is like a cancer. It just totally takes over your body.
Okay.
It consumes you, especially in the lungs, which is similar to what cancer does in the body. Until you're not strong enough to fight that virus off. It totally takes over the body, just as cancer cells do. So I'm happy to hear that you are pro vaccine. And I hope
Oh
that,
yeah.
yeah, that more will be done in that area. Now, you mentioned that you were well familiar with the budget of the city of Cleveland. So, how would you propose that our budgeted resources be allocated at this point? And I know that the budget changes. I know that it's a fluid entity, but at this time, where do you see the dollars going?
But as you know, it may be fluid and it does change. But then at the end of the day, a budget is a clear portrait of how you feel about the people you represent.
Yes.
I mean, let's be clear. You look
Yes.
at a budget, it tells you how do I actually feel about the people that I represent, and
Hmm.
you do that by how you're going to allocate the funds and the resources in the communities. Okay.
Yes.
So one of the things that I've always advocated for is that when I'm mayor of the city of Cleveland, we know we got a problem with poverty, right?
Right.
We all agree that we got a problem with poverty. Then every
Hmm.
director that comes to me, I've got to say to him or her, how is this budget that you're asking for your department, for your division, how is
Hmm.
it going to help me reduce the poverty level in the city of Cleveland? I mean, it's simple as that.
Hmm.
We're
Hmm.
not going to wish our way away from this issue of poverty in the city of Cleveland. It's just not going to happen.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
mean, we all know the power of prayer. We all know that.
Yes. All right.
Okay. And I'm going to say to you, and I'm going to say it to the pastors and missions and United Pastors and Missions, and I'm going to say to the Baptist ministers, and I'm going to say to the Catholic institutions, I need you to pray for me every single day.
All right. All
But I
right.
also need you to help me work on this every single day too.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I'm
That's
saying to
right.
my people in my administration, don't give me a budget that's not going to be anti-poverty.
Hmm. Hmm.
I want to see that budget that's saying to me, and I don't care what budget it is. I don't care if it's in the health department. I mean,
Hmm.
how is this budget that you've given to me going to help us reduce the poverty in this city of Cleveland?
Yes.
And that's and because I don't think people understand the harmful effects of poverty. It is
Hmm.
totally different. I tell people all the time, it's totally different from people being poor. When you think
Hmm.
about being poor, you think about if I get a good job today, I'm not going to be poor.
Hmm.
If I get a good paycheck today, I'm not going to be poor.
Hmm.
Okay, but when
Hmm.
you're living in poverty, poverty is like having that cloud every day you wake up. There's no hope for you. I don't
Yes.
see any hope for me whatsoever.
Hmm.
I'm living in the same environment that I've lived in for the past 6 months or a year.
Hmm.
Nothing has changed. I've gotten a good job, but it's been a job where I'm only making $7, $8 an hour. I don't have health care. I
Hmm.
can't even really put food on the table for my family.
Yes.
That's the harmful effect of poverty. And therefore, we've got to look at how do we get these families and these children out of this poverty stricken situation that they find themselves in every
Hmm.
single day. And one of the ways that I know is by looking at how city government can help them.
Hmm. Hmm.
How does city government help? How do we build affordable housing in our wards and in our communities, in our neighborhoods, to get them out of this poverty-stricken community? If you're looking at 50 to 60% of your wages are going towards just trying to put a roof over your family's head,
Hmm.
then the other 40%, you can look. I'm paying 60% to try to just put a roof over my head. I'm paying another 10 to 20% to have electricity and
Hmm.
utilities, and then
Hmm.
I pay another 10% to try to put food on the table, but I still got to put gas in the car, or I still got to put bus. I mean, riding the bus ain't free in the city of Cleveland, so I still
Hmm.
get public transportation. I mean, you just think about it. So
Mm-hmm.
all of those things add up. If I am not getting the wages that I need to be having, I'm living in poverty every single day.
That's
So
right.
how do I take this budget, this 1.5 billion, 1.8 billion dollar budget for the city of Cleveland, and transform it in such a way that is helping the people in the city of Cleveland that are living in poverty to get them out of poverty?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you do it by looking at every aspect, every department, every division in that city, in
Mm-hmm.
in the city of Cleveland, and saying to them, bring me a budget. I don't
Mm-hmm.
care if it brings me a budget that only reduces it by 5%. That's 5% that I can be using now to go back into those wards, into those communities, into those neighborhoods to help those families in those communities get out of poverty. It may
Mm-hmm.
only in some parts of the budget, it might only be 5%. In some parts, it may be 10, 20%. But
Mm-hmm.
every little bit helps. And
Yeah.
if I get every little bit, it helps. And I'm moving it, like I said, this election has got to be about neighborhoods and people in those neighborhoods. And if I'm putting more resources and I'm putting more funding in back into those wards, back into those communities, back into those neighborhoods, I'm now one of the things that I'm infusing back into those communities is hope. And you know
Yes.
what the Bible said about hope.
Yes.
We all know what it says about hope.
Yes. Yes.
You know, we know the greatest of these is love, but he also talks about hope.
Mm-hmm. These three remain.
These three remain. So if you
Yeah.
look at the aspect that so many of these wards, so many of these communities, so many of these neighborhoods, the hope has been sucked out of those communities.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason you got people walking around with mental health problems. That's the reason you got so many neighborhoods with unsafe conditions. You got so many children that believe that I'm not going to even make it to my 25th birthday because we sucked the hope out of these wards and these communities and these neighborhoods. And what I want to do is I want to let them know that I'm going to provide you hope again.
Oh, all right. All right. That's a good deal. Faith, hope, and love.
Faith, hope, and
Amen.
love.
Faith, hope, and love. And it looks like we're trying to balance. I mean, either we increase wages or we give more from the government, or we do a balance. I have to say, when I first started working, every year we received a cost of living wage.
Mm.
Every year without fail. We were guaranteed that. And you receive that in addition to your wage for the number of years you have worked. For example, at 1 year, you would get a raise. They may skip the second year, but at 3 years, you would get a raise. At 5 years, you would get a raise. Those raises were guaranteed. Somehow, over the course of time, they disappeared.
Well, it disappeared for some. It disappeared for some now. It didn't
Okay,
disappear for all of them now. When you look at
okay,
when you look at the top 1% make more wages than the other 99%, it didn't
yeah,
reduce for everybody now.
right, yeah, but theirs is profit. They're not the top 1% is not about wages; it's about profit.
Yeah, whether it's
So
profit or wages, they living a lot better than
they
the
get
other people.
they getting it. That's right. But for the working people, those increases were guaranteed on a regular basis, and again, they went away. And
And
so,
that's
as
the
the
reason.
cost of
And
living
that's the
went
reason.
up, the
And that's the
raises
reason we got to put
never
dignity back.
happened.
But that's the reason we got to put dignity back into work.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right.
Like I
So,
said, when I had a paper route, I mean, it wasn't like I made a lot of money on that paper route, but I had some money in my pocket to be able to help myself and to help my mom out. Like I said, I was raised by a single mom. So it
yes,
helped
I
her.
well,
I didn't, if I needed new shoes, I didn't have to rely on her to have to go buy me new tennis shoes.
mm-hmm,
I had to
mm-hmm.
rely on her to get me to the store to buy the new shoes, but I
That's
could go
right.
buy my own new shoes.
That's right.
And that's
That's right.
important. And that's why, and
Yes,
that's important. That's very, very important. And
yes.
we've taken the dignity out of work. And I'm saying to you that we got to change this paradigm. And as mayor of the city of Cleveland, I'm going to do that.
All right. All right. And that is so good to hear. And just want to remind the audience that the election is coming up. Um, September 14th is the primary election. You can vote by mail, and I have called. There's a number to call to receive your ballot. And this is actually a copy of my application for the ballot.
Yeah, early voting starts. Early voting starts August the 17th.
Okay, so you can call and get your ballot. But if you want your candidate to win, you have to vote.
You got to vote.
Your candidate is not going to win if you don't get out there and vote. Just
We
as
don't
we
have,
did.
we don't have a dictatorship here.
That's right. And we made it with Biden because everybody got out there and voted. You know, they saw how important it was. So this election is just as important. As a 501c3, I can't support any particular candidate. I have to remain neutral. But it is my responsibility to bring you the information that you need to make an informed decision. So that's what I'm trying to do here today.
And
And
I think, and I appreciate you giving me this opportunity too.
okay, all right. So are there any last comments you would care to make, Mr. Reed, on this topic?
Well, let me echo again. I thank you very much for this opportunity, Doctor, to be able to speak to you and speak to your audience about the importance of the mayor's position and the reason I want to be mayor of the city of Cleveland. You know, we talk about, you mentioned that people go out of their way to vote for the president, and I think that's important, but you may never meet the president of the United States. You may never have the opportunity to be in the room with the president of the United States. President of the United States may or may not affect your life, but I can guarantee you what happens here on the local level from a mayor's office does affect your life on a daily basis. And that's the importance of being the position of mayor of the city of Cleveland. If anyone on this call, on this Zoom, is a citizen, a resident of the city of Cleveland, and is a voter in the city of Cleveland, I'm going to ask you to please vote for me. I laid out my resume, 11 years working for the governor of the state of Ohio, 4 years of working for Mayor Willie Brown in San Francisco as an intergovernmental affairs officer, 17 years of being a councilman here in the city of Cleveland, and 3 years working for Ohio Secretary of State Frank LaRose as the minority affairs coordinator. My resume speaks for itself as it relates to leadership, education, and the ability to get the job done on day one. If you want a mayor that has the experience and the education, I'm asking you to please vote for me on September the 14th to be the next mayor of the city of Cleveland. Thank you once again, Doctor. I appreciate it. You got my phone number, you got my email, you got everything you need. If I could ever help you in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out to me to be of assistance to you. And thank you again. And I will say to you, as I say in every church that I go to on Sundays, you know, there are a lot of things that people ask me, what can I do for you on this campaign? And I tell them a lot of things you can do. My office is located at 15407 Kinsman Avenue, 15407 Kinsman Avenue. You can come here and you can volunteer. You can go to my website, www.zackreed.com, and you can give me money. But I tell people all the time, the one thing that doesn't cost you anything to do, you can pray for me. You can pray for me. You know, I knock on doors every night. We're practically every night. And when I'm knocking on that door, I don't know who's behind that door. I don't know what streets I'm going down. But my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ does. And he says that he'll never leave me nor forsake me. So I know if we pray that he'll protect me. He'll place a hedge of protection around me. But I need your prayers every single day. So thank you very much, Pastor. I appreciate you very much.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. And I will be praying for you. I will be praying for your campaign. Your campaign workers have been a delight to work with. So I would just like to tell you that.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you. I appreciate you for coming on the program. And so thank you. I would just like to conclude with The Way is a subsidiary of A Work of Heart Christian Ministries. And we do bring relevant biblical training and dialogue and discussions that will assist church leaders as well as lay persons. We are a registered nonprofit in the state of Ohio, and we offer worship services, Bible study, and giving campaigns. So look for us on YouTube and look for us on Facebook. Some of our initiatives are school initiatives. We support Warrensville High School and Nathan Hill Middle School. We provide assistance for women and children in shelters. And we have just formed an alliance with a church and orphanage in Kenya. So those are the things that we are working on, as well as our other God-given gifts and God-given services and church services. So look for us, help us out if you've been helped by this program, or join us so that you can help people within the community and within the world. So I thank you for attending this program. Again, I thank you, Mr. Zack Reed.
You're welcome.
I wish you well, and
Thank
just
you.
remember to get vaccinated. Remember to wear your mask, especially if you're indoors. If you do that, the more lives that we will be able to save. Let's pray for one another and pray for those in need. And remember Isaiah 30:21. Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, "This is the way. Walk in it." Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.